Ancient Sumerian technology. Boom! Got the supervisor out here helping today. Through here, into the fuse box. Okay, now what? Perfect. And we're committed. Working on building a skid plate for the transfer case. And what I got here are some of these, they're like weld nuts. Got these from Barnes. They're 1/2 20. So they got this weld flange here. And then ideally what you're supposed to do is drill a hole that's, 7/8 or 3/4. And then you stick this, say this was your flange. You drill a hole, you stick this down inside there, and then you weld that, and that gives you something to bolt to. But what I'm going to do is a little bit different. I'm going to actually weld these like this up against this suspension there, and then I'm going to drill some holes so that this radius will go inside of there. This is going to get welded like that. So this radius here, this stick out, is going to come through here. So we'll be able to see this. Now what that'll do is, instead of having the bolt taking all of the shear load from the impacts, what this is going to do is allow that weight to go onto this. And the bolt is merely going to hold it in place instead of the bolt taking the weight. And so I got 10-inch bar, and then this is a couple pieces of angle. I got one hole hogged out there. So this is kind of what this is going to look like. This is going to sit in like that. This is going to be welded to the frame. Well, the suspension, it's complicated. So that load, see, that's a pretty tight fit there. So that load is going to go on this instead of the bolt, which is exactly what I wanted. So just kind of drilling slow here, a lot of chatter. You know, this is just kind of old stuff. Let's see, is there a date on this? 1983. And then we got the bandsaw over here from 1983 too. So these actually predate me by 2 years. I actually just had to buy a new band for this because the original one from 1983 finally broke. There it is. All right, so I got one done. Let the drill bit cool down, but basically what this is going to look like is sort of like this. So this is what it's going to look like. It's going to sit up there just like that. And what I did was I just used this original hole here from the frame stiffener. So what I needed to do was figure out where I'm going to put that hole, because it needs to be exactly where it needs to go, right? So what I did was put this up there like that, and then I found this drill bit here, which is the exact same as this inner diameter. Stuck it in there and made a mark. So now I can drill a pilot hole and then ream that out to 1/2 inch. So this is going to do is, once this piece is on there, this bar is going to weld onto it, and I'm going to have to bend it down a little bit, and then it's basically going to follow this level here until it gets to the other side. So yeah, good stuff. All right, so this is what the bracketry looks like. It's bolted down, it's nice and solid. So I wanted to make as straight of a shot as possible. I'm going to have to make a little bit of a bend down here to kind of come down here to this level. So what I ended up doing was I had to raise the transfer case up even more. I've always had these 1/4 inch spacers in here to raise the mount up, but I ended up using 2 more 1/2 inch spacers to raise the transfer case up even more. So, you know, this is going to be one of those things where somebody's going to say, "Oh, you're an idiot. You got to lower the transfer case." No. Go do some geometry and learn about stuff. I mean, sure, this U-joint here has got quite a bit of an angle on it, but when am I ever going to have both tires completely drooped? It's just really not feasible unless I'm off the ground, airborne. Same thing with the front. This angle will never be obtained in nature, but it is pretty close. You know, it's getting close to touching. Now, this is the factory drive shaft. As you can see inside there, the cardan joint is worn out, so that's going to be one of the things that needs to be fixed. Yeah, factory shaft. It has the exact same, actually a little bit steeper angle than the control arms there, which is not a huge problem because it's not. I have the diff tilted forward, And then somebody's going to say, oh, you're an idiot because your caster angle's wrong. But, some of you guys need to stop believing everything you read and hear on the forums. You know, some things are truth, some things are just old wives' tales, kind of like, oh, you need to run a thicker oil because your pressure's low. Like, yeah, it's a whole nother rabbit hole, but. Okay, so we got this side burnt in just to make this a little bit easier to hold on to there. So that's nice and rigid. It ain't going anywhere. So now what I need to do is I'm going to have to make a cut in this, bend this down a little bit, and then over, and then another cut, and then bend it up. Just to kind of, you know, make a shape to go kind of around this, because the goal here is ground clearance. As you can see, we're barely touching there, but I want a little bit, you know, obviously this gap is not going to close with this touching, so we're going to have to make a little bit of a whoop-de-woo there. But yeah, so good stuff. Now keep in mind also that how far this is hanging down. So the factory cross member is much higher. This is the Clayton stuff. This stuff, the cross member and the frame stiffeners in the rears, the mounts, those are all Clayton. I made the arms myself. Those aren't Clayton. They want an astronomical amount to ship them. So the factory cross member sits much higher. So this transfer case is basically just dangling down there in space, waiting to get destroyed. So yeah, making a little bit of progress here. Just kind of slow and steady as we go. Well, got one bend in it. I don't have a press brake here in the shop, and I really don't feel like driving into town. So I just used the grinder, cut off disc, measured, Sharpie, cut it about halfway through, and then bent it. So this goes straight across. Well, it's upside down, but this is going to go down this way. This one's going to go down, well, up, I guess, and then this one's going to level out. And then it should end somewhere about here, and then that'll get welded on. Like this guy here. So I'm going to weld along this inner groove here, and right now I took it off because my shoulder sucks and I don't want to grind above my head, and also I don't want all that dust in here. So I'm going to grind this way away from me, and then I got the fan on over there, so that's going to try and blow some of the chips out. Now if you ever did any type of metalworking before, you know that when you grind, you know, that stuff has to go somewhere, and it ends up all over the floor, in your clothes, and you're breathing it. You can taste the iron in your nose while you're, you know, hours later. So after about an hour of grinding and test fitting and grinding and test fitting and grinding and test fitting, this is what we got. It's pretty close. I need to cut this off here so I can kind of tack it up in there. Now what I'm trying to do now is make it to where I'm using a pole jack to kind of shape the stuff. Now when I put it up there and weld it, I want it to be in such a way that it's not springy, you know what I mean? It needs to go up there, and that's where it wants to live. It needs to live in that spot, not want to bend and twist and stuff. So now what I'm going to do is come through here, cut this off. I got the grinder out. I'm going to go through here and clean these up because I'm going to have to weld all of these seams here, and then got to clean up this inside seam here so I can weld on that. But well, got her up there, tacked in place. This is pretty much what it's gonna look like. Just a little bend there. You know, just kind of a little bit even. I don't want this catching on anything, but you know, it's nice and solid. So I tacked this in here, and I figured, I did some figuring. I figured that when I put this together, this was gonna have enough deflection for me to be able to pry this up and over that edge. But this thing is rock solid. It's not going anywhere. I figured that there'd be enough bend in this thing to be able to pop that over the top there, but there is not any deflection there. So what I'm going to have to do is cut these tacks off, and then I'm going to have to come in here and grind a slot in that so that this can hook in and then go up. And then I guess what I'll do is I'll just weld these washers on here to at least hold it. Now it's not going to have a whole lot of weight coming down. I'm worried about the force going up. So this washer will be more than adequate to hold the thing in place. But yeah, I figured that there'd be enough bend in there, but there's not enough bend. So ended up welding some washers on here just to hold this in place. Did a couple extra stringers here to kind of add a little bit of rigidity to it. So I was thinking, you know, this kind of a long span running across here. So I was doing some figuring, like, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll weld some of these pieces on here like that, just to give this something to rest against too, and in case it, you know, takes a jolly good whack, it doesn't just bend the crap out of this and shove it into the case or the exhaust. You know, this will be something to help take the force of it. So what I'm going to do here is I got a couple of these little triangles that I had from another project from the bandsaw. So I'm just going to tack these in there like that for some extra gusseting, and then stick it back in, and I think we'll be golden. Well, there it is. It's all in there. I got my extra support bracketry welded in there on that side. You know, I think probably what's going to happen is it's going to rattle, so I might end up drilling some holes in here and putting a bolt in it, but I'm not sure yet. We'll see how it goes. You know, not the most prettiest thing ever on the planet, but it sure beats breaking the rear snout of your transfer case off. You know, these drive shaft angles are kind of sketchy, but you know, it's got plenty of clearance. This thing doesn't really drive on the road very much, so I'm not really worried about that much. So yeah, I know there's going to be somebody that says, "Oh, your drive shaft angles suck." I'm like, well, yeah, you are absolutely correct. Correct, Amanda. This is, I think the last time I measured, it was about 11 inches of lift, 10 or 11. So yeah, it's kind of what you expect. I wish I could tilt this diff forward a little bit more to get that pinion off the ground, but I have something special coming in another video for the front and the rear. So yeah, there we go. Enough playing around for me today. I gotta get back to fixing other people's problems. So see you later.